Let me start by telling you something that will change your life if you take it seriously. You can't focus on what you can't define. That's the truth most people never confront. People walk around saying they want success, but if you ask them what success looks like, sounds like, feels like, they can't tell you. They'll give you vague words, freedom, happiness, money. But when pressed to get specific, they stumble. That's because they've never taken the time to become clear. And let me tell you, clarity is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Clarity is the first level of power. Without it, you are just a drifter with good intentions. You might have talent, you might even have discipline, but without clarity, your effort is like a light bulb. It glows, but it doesn't cut. You want focus? You need a laser. And a laser is nothing more than light that's been concentrated. That concentration, that clarity is the difference between being busy and being productive. Let me put it another way. Imagine someone trying to build a house. They have all the materials, wood, concrete, steel, glass, but no blueprint. They're hammering and sawing and mixing, but they don't know what they're building. It doesn't matter how hard they work because they don't know what the final structure is supposed to be. That's how most people live. Working, hustling, even grinding, but grinding in the wrong direction. When you don't have clarity, hard work becomes a trap instead of a tool. Clarity gives your mind a job. The human mind is like a heat-seeking missile. It looks for targets, and if you don't set the target, the world will. Social media will. Society will. Friends and family will. And none of them are you, your future. When your mind doesn't have clarity, it gets pulled in 10 directions. And then people wonder why they feel overwhelmed, anxious, stuck. It's because they're trying to chase too many things with too little focus. Clarity also builds confidence. When you are clear about what you're going after, your decisions get easier. Should I go to this event? Does it align with the vision? No? Then don't go. Should I start this new project? Does it push the mission forward? No. Then it's a distraction. Clarity makes it simple. It doesn't make life easy, but it does make it simple. And simplicity gives your mind space to perform at its highest level. You want to know why some people seem like they're moving faster than everyone else? It's not because they're smarter. It's because they're not second-guessing every move. They've defined what the win looks like, and they move toward it with intentional energy. That's the power of clarity. It takes you from chaos to control, from distraction to direction. Now let's talk about the enemy of clarity, confusion. Confusion is the result of trying to do too many things, trying to please too many people, trying to chase too many dreams all at once. People say, I don't know what to do. But that's often because they haven't taken time to sit down, shut out the noise, and listen. Listen to what God is telling them. Listen to their own heart. Listen to what they're really called to do, not what looks good on Instagram or what everyone else is chasing. You don't get clarity by accident. You get it by intention. And let's be honest, most people are afraid of clarity. Because once you get clear, you become accountable. You can no longer hide behind the excuse of I'm still figuring it out. You know what you want, and now the question becomes, are you doing what it takes to get it? Clarity removes the comfort of confusion. It forces you to take responsibility. But guess what? That's when the game changes. Think about every powerful leader you admire, every successful entrepreneur, every world-class athlete. They're not confused about their mission. They wake up knowing what the target is. They live, breathe, and act with a sense of definition. They've trained their mind to ignore what doesn't matter, and that starts with being ruthlessly clear about what does matter. You've got to define the vision in detail, not just, I want to be rich. How much? Doing what? Doing what? What does your life look like when you have that wealth? Where do you live? What does your business look like? What kind of team do you have? Don't just say, I want freedom. I'm freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom. Don't just say, I want to help people. How many, in what way? Through what medium? Speaking, writing, coaching, building, serving. The more specific you are, the more power you give your mind to execute. Clarity isn't just about having a big vision. It's about having a defined vision, and that definition gives your energy a direction. Without it, you're just reacting. And reactive energy will never build a proactive life. The first assignment isn't to hustle harder or wake up earlier. The first assignment is to get clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what you want. Clear about what your life is not going to be. Because once you decide, once you define it, once you declare it, your focus has something to attach to. And that's when the shift begins. That's when you move from motion to momentum, from guessing to growing, from hoping to hitting targets. And once you taste the power of clarity, you'll never go back to confusion. You'll start to see how much of your old habits were rooted in a lack of definition. You'll start to notice how many people are moving fast in circles because they never stop to ask, oh, what exactly am I aiming for? You'll stop applauding activity and start celebrating alignment, because alignment with clarity brings peace. It brings precision. It brings power. Without purpose, focus becomes fatigue. That's the reality most people ignore. They try to force themselves to concentrate, to grind, to lock in, but they don't know why they're doing it. And when you don't have a compelling reason behind your actions, focus becomes friction. You push, you strain, you fight your own thoughts. And eventually you burn out, not because you're weak, but because you're trying to produce energy without fuel. And purpose is the fuel. People don't get tired from doing too much. They get tired from doing too much of what doesn't matter. They chase what looks good on the outside without questioning whether it aligns with what's burning on the inside. They confuse being busy with being productive. And they confuse motion with meaning. You can run full speed on a treadmill and go nowhere. But when you have purpose, every step, every move, every breath has direction. Purpose gives you momentum. It turns effort into progress. Most people don't lack motivation. They lack meaning. If you give a person enough purpose, they'll break through any excuse. They'll wake up earlier, stay up later, study harder, speak bolder, because purpose is what transforms obligation into obsession. Think about it. When you love something, you don't need a reminder. Nobody has to convince you to show up for what matters most to you. That's because love is a form of purpose. Passion is just purpose set on fire. But purpose isn't something you find, it's something you uncover. It's already in you, buried under distraction, doubt, insecurity, and outside voices. The world keeps telling you what you should be, what you should do, and who you should follow. And so people start living according to pressure instead of purpose. They chase a version of success that isn't even theirs, and then they wonder why they can't stay focused. You can't focus on what doesn't resonate with your spirit. Your brain might try, but your soul knows better. That's why people feel empty in the middle of achievements. They're climbing a ladder, leaning against the wrong wall. Purpose is personal. It's not one size fits all. It's not found in comparison. It's not found in validation. You find your purpose when you stop asking, what will make me look good? And start asking, what was I made for? Because when you start living from purpose instead of performance, focus becomes natural. You don't need tricks or hacks to stay focused when your heart is involved. Purpose brings focus into alignment. It tells your mind where to look and tells your soul why it matters. And purpose doesn't mean your life has to be perfect. In fact, your pain often points you toward your purpose. What broke you might be the very thing that builds others. And what you survived might be the testimony that changes someone else's direction. There's power in the problems you've overcome. Don't discount them. Purpose takes everything you've been through, every loss, every delay, every wrong turn, and turns it into a reason to rise. So don't look for a purpose that sounds impressive. Look for the one that feels inevitable. You know what makes someone unstoppable? Purpose-driven focus. You can't distract someone who's on assignment. You can't tempt them with shortcuts, and you can't intimidate them with setbacks. Because they're not doing it for applause. They're not doing it for approval. They're doing it because they must. When your mind locks into purpose, your eyes stop wandering. Your energy stops leaking. Your distractions stop winning. Purpose also brings clarity. It filters your decisions. It simplifies your yes and strengthens your no. When someone asks you to do something, you don't need to think about it for hours. You simply ask, does this align with my purpose? If not, it's not for you. The more aligned you are, the more focused you become. And the more focused you become, the more powerful your presence becomes. The truth is, people can feel purpose. They might not be able to explain it, but they can sense when someone is walking in alignment. There's a confidence, a conviction, a calm boldness that comes with it. You stop trying to impress and start trying to impact. You stop trying to be seen and start trying to serve. Purpose shifts the spotlight from you to them. And when the mission is bigger than you, your focus becomes deeper than fear. Purpose is also what sustains you through the hard days. Because let's be real, life doesn't always go according to plan. There will be resistance, rejection, and reroutes. But when you're fueled by purpose, you don't stop. You might slow down, you might adjust the strategy, but you never quit. Because deep down, you know this isn't just about money or fame or recognition. This is about why you're here. And that why keeps your focus alive when everything else around you feels dark. And don't confuse purpose with position. You can be in a temporary place and still be on a permanent assignment. You can be working a job that isn't your dream while building the purpose that is. Your current situation doesn't cancel your deeper calling. If you stay focused on your purpose, even the detours become development. Even the small stages become training grounds. Even the waiting becomes preparation. So many people are stuck because they're trying to force focus without finding purpose. They try to copy strategies instead of discovering identity. But purpose isn't a script, it's a calling. It's not about looking the part, it's about being the part. It's not about mimicking success, it's about manifesting significance. Focus born from purpose is more than concentration. It's consecration. You dedicate your gifts, your time, your life to a mission that matters more than convenience. Once you connect to that kind of purpose, everything shifts. The noise gets quieter. The vision gets clearer. The energy gets stronger. Your focus stops being something you try to do. It becomes something you can't stop doing. Because when your soul is locked in, your mind has no choice but to follow. Social media, notifications, emails, noise, these are not just distractions, they're your daily enemies. And most people don't even realize they're under attack. They walk through their day scrolling, clicking, replying, reacting, and wonder why their life feels like a blur. It's because they haven't learned the discipline of starving distractions and feeding intentions. You can't train your mind to focus if you're feeding it chaos. But focus isn't a superpower. It's a choice you have to make moment by moment, day by day, decision by decision. And it starts with understanding that not everything deserves your attention. Not every message needs a response. Not every app deserves a tap. Not every voice needs to be heard in your ears. The world is loud and it's getting louder. But just because the world is loud doesn't mean you have to listen. You have to be ruthless about what gets your attention, because attention is your most valuable currency. And just like with money, if you don't budget your attention, you'll go broke. You'll spend it on the urgent instead of the important. You'll give it to everyone and everything except the one person who actually needs it most: your goals, your growth, your vision. And they are starving while distractions are eating like kings, and that has to stop. The problem isn't that people don't have time. It's that their time is being stolen. Every time you open your phone without a plan, you're handing the world the keys to your mental kingdom. You're saying, here, drive my focus wherever you want. And the world will drive it into ditches of comparison, anxiety, envy, and numbness. You're not just losing minutes, you're losing mastery. You're trading momentum for mental junk food. And just like with your body, what you feed your mind determines how it performs. You wouldn't expect peak physical energy while eating candy for every meal. So why expect mental clarity when your brain is constantly being fed distractions? You have to get intentional. Your day doesn't start when your alarm goes off, starts when your attention is directed. And you can either direct it with purpose or let the world direct it with noise. Every scroll is a vote. Every click is a decision. Every moment you give to nonsense is a moment you took from your destiny. So you have to ask, who or what is robbing me of my focus? What am I tolerating that's pulling me away from purpose? What apps, people, patterns, or habits are creating mental clutter instead of mental clarity? It's not enough to eliminate distractions. You have to replace them. You have to feed your intentions. What are you building? Who are you becoming? What are you here to do? What does your future require from your present? Because distraction isn't just about entertainment, it's about avoidance. People don't scroll because they're curious. They're curious. They scroll because they're escaping. They're avoiding responsibility, fear, uncertainty, or the discomfort of growth. But escaping doesn't eliminate the problem. It just delays the break. You've got to look at your life with brutal honesty and say, oh, what have I been avoiding by distracting myself? Your intentions need structure. That means building rhythms, routines, and rituals that protect your focus. It means designing your environment to feed your priorities. That might mean turning off notifications, deleting apps, waking up earlier, setting blocks of time for deep work, or creating physical spaces where focus is the only option. If your phone is the first and last thing you touch every day, your focus has already been compromised. You need to create boundaries between you and the noise. Distraction feels urgent, but intention creates results. The text message feels urgent, but your goals are more important. The new video feels urgent, but your mission matters more. You can't keep putting your purpose on pause to answer calls that were never meant for you. You're too gifted to be this distracted. You're too anointed to be this available to nonsense. You've got work to do. You've got a vision to build. You've got a life to live on purpose. Intentional focus is uncomfortable at first. Your brain is used to stimulation, to dopamine, to novelty. So when you sit down to focus, it rebels. It gets bored. It wants to escape. But just because it wants to escape doesn't mean you should let it. You have to train it like a muscle. You have to sit in the discomfort until your mind realizes we're not leaving until the work is done. That's when breakthroughs happen. Not in the exciting moments, but in the boring consistency of honoring your intention over your impulse. Starving distractions doesn't mean becoming antisocial. It means becoming intentional. It means valuing your purpose more than your popularity. It means being willing to be misunderstood so you can be focused. It means saying no to things that look good so you can say yes to what is good. And when you begin to live like that, everything changes. Your energy multiplies, your creativity sharpens, your time expands, not because you got more hours, but because you stopped giving those hours to thieves. The average person touches their phone over 2,500 times a day. That's not connection. You've got to break the cycle. You've got to reclaim your mind, because your mind is not a playground, it's a command center. And you don't let distractions run your command center. You decide what comes in, what stays, and what gets kicked out. That's what leaders do. That's what focused people do. That's what builders do. If you want to go to the next level, you've got to starve what's stealing from you and feed what's building you. You've got to protect your attention like your future depends on it, because it does. The life you want is on the other side of the distractions you're willing to eliminate. The person you're becoming is shaped by the intentions you're willing to honor. Every day you feed your purpose, you train your mind to focus. Every day you starve a distraction, you reclaim your power. Every choice matters. Every second counts. Every act of intention is a declaration. I'm not here to be entertained, I'm here to execute. Focus doesn't begin with discipline, it begins with desire. Discipline is powerful, but it's not sustainable without desire. You can force yourself to wake up early to sit at your desk and grind for hours, but if there's no inner desire, it all becomes mechanical. And mechanical effort leads to burnout. Desire is the fire behind your focus. When you truly want something, when you crave it, when it pulls at your spirit, focus becomes automatic. It's not forced, it flows. The problem is most people suppress their desires. Somewhere along the line, they were taught that wanting too much is greedy, that dreaming too big is foolish, that reaching too far is arrogant. So they settle. They shrink their goals, they numb their passion, and in doing so, they kill their focus. You can't focus on a vision that doesn't excite you. You can't concentrate on a life you don't actually want. So before you try to develop a habit of focus, you have to awaken the hunger that fuels it. You've got to get honest about what you really want, not what's safe. Not what's realistic, not what's acceptable. What do you really want? What sets your soul on fire? What makes time disappear when you talk about it? Think about it, work on it. That's where focus lives. That's the starting point. You don't need a productivity hack, you need a bigger why. Because when your why is big enough, the how finds a way. When your desire is strong enough, distractions lose their power. Desire sharpens your awareness. It tunes your mind to see opportunities, to spot resources, to recognize alignment. When you're hungry, you notice things others ignore. You see solutions where others see problems. You dig deeper, you go longer, you bounce back quicker. Desire activates your focus like nothing else can. And the stronger the desire, the sharper the focus. But desire alone isn't enough. You have to own it. You can't be casual about it. You can't whisper your dreams. You've got to declare them. Speak them out loud, write them down, visualize them with intensity. When you do that, you're telling your brain, oh, this matters, and your brain will begin to filter the world through that lens. That's how the reticular activating system works. It scans your environment for what you tell it is important. So if you say, if this is what I want, your mind starts paying attention to anything that can move you toward it. That's why desire must be paired with intention. Otherwise, it just stays dormant. A fire with no oxygen. You also need to understand that desire isn't selfish, it's sacred. You weren't designed to drift through life doing just enough to get by. You were designed to create, to conquer, to fulfill a calling. And your deepest desires are often clues to that calling. They're not accidents, they're assignments. That longing in your heart is a compass pointing you toward your purpose. And purpose produces focus because it gives your life a direction. It turns random actions into strategic movements. It turns confusion into clarity. You've got to stop waiting for permission to want more. Stop apologizing for your ambition. Stop toning down your vision so others feel comfortable. If your dream is to build, to lead, to influence, to leave a legacy, own that. Lean into that. Because when you fully accept your desire, your energy changes, your posture changes, your focus changes. People can feel the difference between someone who's interested and someone who's invested. Desire creates that difference, and you've got to protect your desire. Because the world will try to kill it. It'll tell you you're too late, too inexperienced, too unqualified. It'll throw distractions at you dressed up as opportunities. It'll feed you comfort when you're supposed to be chasing calling. That's why desire must be guarded. You've got to surround yourself with environments and people that feed your hunger, not suppress it. You've got to curate your life in a way that reminds you daily of what you're after. Bacon. Because if you lose touch with your desire, your focus will follow. Desire also creates urgency. When you really want something, you stop procrastinating. You stop negotiating with your goals. You stop playing small. You stop waiting for the right time. Because you know the time is now. You feel the clock ticking, and that pressure doesn't paralyze you. It propels you. It wakes you up earlier, keeps you up later, drives you deeper. That's what desire does. It wakes up the warrior inside you. It silences excuses. It gives you tunnel vision. You stop caring about irrelevant opinions. You stop chasing approval. You stop needing validation because you know what you're after, and that knowledge is enough. Desire doesn't guarantee results, but it guarantees effort. It guarantees resilience. It guarantees that when things get tough, and they will, you won't fall. You'll rise. Because you're not just chasing a goal, you're chasing a piece of your identity. You're not doing this because it's nice. You're doing it because it's necessary. You don't just want it. You're called to it. That shift in mindset is what creates relentless focus. You're not dabbling. You're deciding. Desire is what gets you started, but it's also what keeps you going. It's the spark and it's the fuel. And the more you act in alignment with your desire, the stronger it becomes. Every step you take toward it, the fire grows. And the bigger the fire, the more clarity you have. The more clarity you have, the more precise your actions become. And when your actions are precise, your results multiply. Not by accident, but by design. You want to train your mind to focus. Start by training your heart to desire. Feed it daily. Speak life over it. Visualize it. Visualize it. Build habits that reinforce it. Make decisions that honor it. And watch what happens. Watch how your days shift from chaos to clarity. Watch how your energy increases. Watch how your standards rise. Watch how you stop settling for average, because when you live with desire, you live with focus. And when you live with focus, you live with power. Your environment is not neutral. It's either pushing you forward or pulling you back. It's either feeding your focus or feeding your frustration. And most people never stop to ask themselves the question, is where I'm living, working, thinking, and spending time designed for distraction or designed for destiny? You can't train your mind to focus in a place that's built for confusion. You can't elevate your thinking in an environment that's pulling you down. That's why before you change your habits, you need to change your atmosphere. People underestimate how deeply their surroundings shape their decisions. Their decisions. They assume focus is just about willpower, but it's not. Focus is about alignment. And if your environment is out of alignment with your intention, your focus will always suffer. You can have the best goals, the best strategy, the best mindset, but if you're trying to grow in the wrong soil, your growth will always be limited. That's why you don't just need motivation, you need to re-engineer your environment to match your mission. Look around you. What do you see every day? What do you hear? What do you feel? Your environment speaks to you even when you're not listening. Every object, every noise, every person you allow into your space is either reinforcing your focus or disrupting. That cluttered desk, those constant alerts, that background noise, they aren't just harmless distractions. They are thieves of your energy, robbers of your clarity, enemies of your momentum. And the worst part is, you've grown so used to them that you no longer notice how much they cost you. Distraction is often just poor design. A phone that never stops buzzing isn't a tool, it's a trap. A space with no boundaries isn't freedom. It's chaos. If you want to train your mind to focus, you've got to become the architect of your atmosphere. You have to take radical responsibility for everything you allow into your mental and physical space. That might mean decluttering. That might mean redesigning your routine. That might mean limiting access to you. Because not everyone deserves to have a voice in your life, especially when they're not aligned with your vision. One of the most powerful ways to protect your focus is to create spaces of solitude, not silenced solitude. A space where you can think clearly, hear your own voice, connect with your deeper calling. Because in a world full of noise, silence is a superpower. In that stillness, your best ideas are born. Your truest priorities are clarified. Your deepest convictions are felt. But you can't access that level of clarity when you're always surrounded by chaos. You have to choose solitude. You have to design for focus. And it's not just about your physical environment, it's about your digital environment too. Your phone is a battlefield. It is a battlefield. Every app, every notification, every message is a fight for your attention. And most people lose that battle every single day. Not because they're weak, but because they've designed their digital life to make losing inevitable. You've got to take your power back. Delete the apps that don't serve your mission. Turn off the alerts that break your concentration. Set limits on the time you spend scrolling, because the more distractions you allow, the more diluted your focus becomes. Then there's your relational environment. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you listening to? Who are you taking advice from? Because people are environments too. And some people sharpen your focus. Some people scatter it. Some people stretch your vision. Some people shrink it. If you spend your time with people who are always distracted, always negative, always drifting, don't be surprised when you start living the same way. If you want to elevate your focus, you need to elevate your circle. Surround yourself with people who are committed, clear, intentional. People who challenge your excuses, people who reflect your standards. Focus thrives in environments of expectation. When everyone around you is moving with purpose, it becomes contagious. You begin to expect more from yourself. You begin to demand more from your time. You begin to treat your purpose like it matters, because it does matter, and your environment should reflect that. You don't put something valuable in a careless place. You don't put fine wine in a plastic cup. So why put your future in an environment that doesn't honor its worth? Even your habits are part of your environment, your morning routine, your workspace rituals, your rhythms throughout the day. They're either designed to fuel your focus or sabotage it. Are you starting your day with intention, or are you letting the world dictate your mood? Are you carving out time for deep work? Or are you constantly reacting to what's urgent? Are you feeding your mind content that inspires you or content that distracts you? Every habit is a vote for the kind of environment you're creating. And that environment is creating you back. The most successful people in the world don't have superhuman discipline. They just design their lives in a way that makes focus easy and distraction hard. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems. They don't hope for clarity. They design for it. They don't wait to feel inspired. They create conditions where inspiration is likely to strike. You can do the same. But it requires being intentional. It requires being honest about what's helping you and what's hindering you. It requires being willing to make changes that might feel uncomfortable, but are absolutely necessary. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be intentional. You don't need a complete overhaul overnight. You need consistent upgrades. One change at a time. One layer at a time. Every improvement to your environment is an investment in your focus. Every intentional decision to remove a distraction or introduce clarity is a seed planted in your future. Because environments don't just support your goals, they shape your identity. They whisper to you who you are and what you're capable of. So make sure your environment is telling the truth. Make sure it's aligned with who you're becoming. Make sure it reflects the weight of your calling and the clarity of your vision. Because when your environment is aligned, your focus becomes effortless and your execution becomes inevitable. They sit around hoping for inspiration to strike like lightning, thinking that one day they'll feel ready, energized, and passionate enough to finally take massive action. But that's not how high achievers live. They don't wait for motivation. They create momentum because they understand a fundamental truth about the mind. Motion precedes emotion. If you want to feel focused, driven, and locked in, you don't sit around waiting. You move, you act, you do the thing whether you feel like it or not. And once you start moving, your brain catches up. Action is the spark that creates clarity. It silences doubt, interrupts procrastination, and shatters resistance. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you're not just getting things done, you're training your mind. You're rewiring your brain to associate movement with meaning. And that's what creates lasting focus, not the hype of a motivational video, not the buzz from a coffee-fueled morning, but the discipline of movement when excuses feel stronger than reason. Because the truth is, your feelings are not the driver, your decisions are. And if you let your emotions set the pace of your life, you'll always be at the mercy of your mood. The mind is like a muscle, and just like your body, it responds to consistent training. You wouldn't expect to get in shape by working out once a week. You wouldn't expect to build strength by skipping the gym every time you didn't feel like it. The same is true for focus. You build it by showing up again and again, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when it's hard, especially when every part of you wants to do anything but the work. Because those are the moments that matter most. That's where the real training happens. That's where your future is being shaped, not in the moments of hype, but in the moments of hesitation. Momentum isn't just physical, it's psychological. When you take action, even small action, you send a signal to your brain that you are in control. You interrupt the cycle of stagnation and spark a new narrative. You start stacking wins, and those wins compound. One page becomes a chapter. One email becomes a proposal. One rep becomes a set. One honest conversation becomes a breakthrough. And before you know it, you're not just doing the work, you're becoming the kind of person who does the work. Your identity begins to shift. You stop saying, I should, and start saying, I do. That shift is everything. But here's where people get stuck. They think they need to do big things to make progress. They think they need to feel ready to start. So they delay, they overthink, they wait for the perfect plan, the right timing, the right energy. Meanwhile, life is passing them by. Momentum doesn't need to be massive. It needs to be consistent. It doesn't need to be flashy. It needs to be faithful. The most powerful way to train your mind is to do small things consistently with excellence. You don't have to write the whole book, write one sentence. You don't have to build the whole business, make one call. You don't have to master the whole skill, practice for 10 minutes. And when you do that, you take back control from your circumstances and give it back to your convictions. There's a reason the most effective people have non-negotiables in their schedule. They don't wait to feel motivated to work. They work until motivation shows up. They don't let their to-do list be optional. They turn it into a contract. That contract is with their future self. They've already decided that their purpose is more important than their preference. And their mission is stronger than their mood. And because of that decision, their focus becomes automatic. It's no longer about how they feel. It's about what they've decided. You don't have to rely on discipline if you build systems that make the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. That's the power of momentum. When you keep showing up, you don't just build focus, you build flow. And when you're in flow, focus isn't something you force, it's something you follow. You stop thinking about the distractions. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop overanalyzing. You just move. And that movement creates emotional power, mental strength, and creative clarity. You feel alive because you're aligned. The beauty of momentum is that it gives you permission to start where you are. You don't need a 5-year plan, you need a 5-minute action. You don't need certainty, you need courage. You don't need to know how it ends, you need to begin. And as you move, the next step becomes visible. That's how the mind works. It rewards movement with insight. It rewards risk with clarity. It rewards commitment with creativity. But the reward only comes after the work, not before. Waiting for motivation is a trap. It's a delay tactic dressed in logic. The people who win in life are not those who wait. They're the ones who decide. They've made peace with discomfort. They've accepted that resistance as part of the process. And they've trained themselves to associate progress with motion. So they move. But that only works if you're intentional. Because the default mode of the mind is not focus, it's survival. Left unchecked, your brain will fixate on fear, anxiety, and what could go wrong. That's why you've got to direct it. You've got to feed it what you want it to grow. Every time you catch yourself thinking small, you replace it with expansion. Every time you catch yourself spiraling in worry, you shift to gratitude. Every time you hear yourself making excuses, you speak discipline. That's the daily mental workout. That's how you become mentally strong, not by chance, but by choice. Focus is a reflection of what you've been feeding your mind. If your mind is full of distraction, drama, and doubt, your focus will be weak. But if your mind is full of clarity, conviction, and creativity, your focus becomes unstoppable. It's not just about shutting out the noise, it's about replacing it with something more powerful. You don't overcome negative thinking by fighting it. You overcome it by flooding your mind with purpose. Purpose has a frequency. When you think in alignment with it, everything starts to resonate. You begin to notice connections. You begin to feel flow. You begin to attract people and opportunities that match your mindset. And don't underestimate the power of your inner dialogue. What you say to yourself when nobody's watching is more important than what you post online or tell your friends, because your inner voice is always listening. And if you're tearing yourself down internally, no amount of external success will ever feel sustainable. You've got to learn to coach yourself, not coddle yourself, not criticize yourself, but coach yourself. Call yourself higher, speak to your potential. Remind yourself of your purpose. Build your confidence by being your own ally, not your own adversary. This also means being careful about the content you consume, because your thoughts are shaped by your inputs. If you spend your time absorbing chaos, outrage, gossip, and trivial noise, your mind will reflect that. But if you spend your time around wisdom, strategy, vision, and clarity, your thoughts will rise to meet that level. You've got to curate your mental diet like your future depends on it, because it does. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. Your focus will follow whatever you're constantly exposed to, so choose wisely. Journaling can be a powerful way to take inventory of your thoughts. When you write down what you're thinking, you expose it to the light. You can question it. Reframe it. You turn invisible assumptions into visible beliefs, and that gives you the power to change them. It helps you notice patterns. Are you constantly doubting yourself? Constantly comparing yourself? Constantly thinking worst-case scenarios? Once you see the pattern, you can break it. And breaking that pattern is how you reclaim your focus. What you think consistently, you become eventually. Focus starts with the thoughts you allow to dominate your inner world. You train your mind by disciplining your thoughts, by filtering your inputs, by aligning your self-talk, and by visualizing with intention. That's how you build a mindset that supports your goals, not sabotages them. That's how you create an internal environment that magnetizes you towards success. That's how you develop focus that isn't temporary, but permanent, not based on feelings, but on frameworks, not based on hype, but on habits. Because when your thoughts are focused, your actions follow. And when your actions follow, your results can't help but rise.